Welcome to this amazing, astonishing live interview on the Sunday live interview. Help women as much possible. And then this afternoon is an extra super interview, an extra super interview because I am so happy to have with us Gordon L. Thomas, the author of the great book, the historical book that can inspire you today. The book is called Return to Madrid. So it's time to give our welcome to our friend, author, novelist, and scientist, Gordon Thomas.
Thank you.
Hi, Gordon. Wow.
Thank you very much. Now, it's wonderful to have this opportunity to talk about my life and novels. And it's so good of you to arrange this interview for me. And so thank you, Christian.
Uh, Thank you, Gordon. I am so happy. You know why? Because we met at least 1 year ago, before the pandemic, and I see you uh, in a shop on a bookstore in Wimbledon, and then I wanted a Sony copy of your book, Return to Madrid, and since then we became friends.
Yes, it's been wonderful.
Yes, I promise you, I want to have your live interview, and now after 1 year we have together here on my YouTube channel. It's amazing.
It's brilliant. I'm really grateful.
I want to say to my viewers, thank you to watching our interview, and then I want to say thank you to you, Gordon, because my book it was published with your company, publishing company. So we have more than experience in common.
Yeah, indeed. Yes, my little publishing company sell my books. I publish your book, and it's a really nice book, I think, and it's full of really brilliant advice. In fact, of its kind, I think it's one of the best books I've seen. And would you like me to say a bit about my background and so on at this stage?
Okay, okay.
Okay, then. Well, as Christian has said, my name is Gordon Thomas. I write under the name of Gordon L. Thomas. I live in Worcester Park, uh, Surrey, with my wife, and I have two children. One obviously much older than me. My son is 50, and my daughter's 47. He's an IT expert, and my daughter works in a school in Croydon. She's an assistant headmistress. Anyway, and I must say, my children give me great satisfaction, and I think we have a wonderful time together. Everyone's happy. But this is not about my family so much as about my work as an author, and I'll tell you about that because when I retired in 2003, some time ago now. I was a scientist and administrator in the Home Office. Um, Earlier on, I did a PhD in nuclear physics when I was at King's College in London. Then I did some research and went eventually into the Home Office to work on, would you believe, fingerprint detection. That is, detecting fingerprints left by criminals on objects at scenes of crime. And my team and I developed this technique of finding fingerprints on plastics and fabrics, which was it's still used
Wow.
today all over the world. It's called the metal evaporation technique. Anyway, from there I went on to help develop an automatic fingerprint recognition system, whereby the fingerprints developed and found at scenes of crime are compared with fingerprints on a record, in fingerprint libraries. And that was quite successful, and it was taken up by New Scotland Yard and other police forces. So that was interesting work. And in fact, I've always worked in some way to do with the law in the Home Office. And towards the end of my career, I did some work with, well, I was responsible for all police technology in England and Wales. So I was responsible for the Forensic Science Service, police IT organisation, forensic pathology, police radio communications, research and development on police technology, a whole range of subjects. It was a job that you needed 30 hours a day to successfully complete.
Oh,
But in fact, when I left it, it was split into two jobs, which was an interesting reflection on what sort of job I made of it, I suppose. And you could read that how you like. But I ended up looking after a group of scientists and engineers responsible for police, for security technology, partly for the police, but also for other organizations. I'm not allowed to name some of them, but you can probably guess who they are because I'm not allowed to name them. Anyway, after I retired, I took to studying Spanish. And partly because I'm also involved in an international conference on security. And one of my friends who is a member of the committee asked me if I'd help him run this conference, which is going to be held in Madrid. So I thought, well, the only way to do this really is to learn to speak Spanish. So I learned Spanish up to quite a good level, up to A level, in fact. And part of doing the A level, I had to study a subject that I could talk about to an external examiner. And I chose,
oh,
I've always been interested in music, so I chose to speak about Spanish composers. And I picked composers from each of the 15th, 16th, 17th century and so on. And I was able to, I've learned enough to be able to speak about them. But the only one I found who didn't have a book about him was a character called Juan Hidalgo. In fact, the full name is Juan Hidalgo de Polanco. And I thought, well, what an interesting project to write a biography of this character, Juan Hidalgo, because I was quite attracted to him for several reasons. One, he was a harpist. And he was must have been a brilliant harpist because he was the chief harpist for the King of Spain, Philip IV. And also he wrote the first operas ever written in Spanish, so he was a composer as well as a harpist. So he's a very clever man. And I thought, what a good character to write a biography about. So I wrote this biography. I started to write a plan of biography. And I thought, this isn't going to work out. I haven't got enough information about this guy to write a successful biography. So what I decided to do was write a novel based on his life instead. And that novel was my first novel, and it's called The Harpist of Madrid. And it's sold really well. I think I've sold about 3,500 copies of it over the time,
oh,
which has been in print, which was since 2011. Anyway, a woman friend of mine actually, who's a fellow Rotarian, suggested to me at a meeting, why don't you write a sequel, Gordon, to this novel? And I thought about it, and hummed and hard about it. But in the end, I thought, well, it would be a very good project to write a book about a sequel to the Harpist of Madrid. And one of the reasons that I think it is a good novel to write, and particularly for Christian's audience, is it's got a message in it about how to succeed in a difficult situation. And it's especially relevant to women because the two main characters in the book are the wife of Juan Hidalgo de Polanco, who dies towards the end of The Harpist of Madrid, and one of her best friend, who's called Inés Manuela de Mazzo. And Francisca and Inés decide that they're going to investigate and try and find out how Francisca's son died, because he died while he was at university at a place called Alcalá de Henares, which is not far from Madrid. So I've called the book "Return to Madrid," partly partly because of what happens towards the end of the book, but and also because it follows this sort of series of books I've written. I call them the Madrid series: The Harpist, The Emerald of Burgos, Expulsion, and Return to Madrid. And each of them is connected in some way, but they don't follow one from another. You don't need to read one before you read the next. But the big point I'm making about the Return to Madrid is that these two women are faced with this huge problem investigating the death of the son of Francisca, who, as I said, dies while he's at university in a place called Alcalá de Henares. But the interesting thing is, in a way, it's what you might call a cold case, because his death occurs something like 16 years before Francisca decides to give her life some purpose, to go to Alcalá and investigate the death of the son. And who would have thought, two women going to this rather remote place, obscure place, Alcalá, 16 years after the son has died, can actually work out what happened? Because, of course, in those days, there was no forensic science as such. Most of the people would have changed their jobs in 16 years. I mean, some of the professors at the university would have moved on. So how can they solve this cold case? So what the novel is about really is how unyielding determination can help unravel mysteries of the past. So it's about how you can actually, if you put enough effort and determination into a situation and solving a problem, you can succeed. And I think women should be encouraged by the result, if you like, of the novel, because it does show that almost against impossible odds, you can actually achieve amazing things. So there we are in brief. Back over to you, Cristian, for a moment.
Yes, I was so delighted to listen to your explanation. First of all, I was so amazed because I just learned more about you today. Your passion before to be a scientist, and then I like your transformation, becoming a novelist, an author, starting write a biography. That is a portion of your life, but you were able to transform, develop into a magical story. And then you are so clever because you told to yourself, now it's time to create a series, something unique. And then I suppose that you, in a short period of time, you have written amazing books. I am on. I am so delighted when I read the Return to Madrid, because it's like to watch a movie.
Ah,
Yes,
you're too good.
exactly. When I still remember when the characters, they escaping on horses and riding the horses in the village. It's amazing. I can see in my mind any details, the horses, they are riding, the people, the following, the characters, the noises of the people, the soldier, the the dust made by horses is beautiful, and the panicking, the anxiety, every emotion, every feeling is put in a short paragraph, but my mind is blowing, and I give up to watch the TV color, because your book is much better. I
Ah,
feel me,
bless you.
yes, I feel
What
very.
I try to do in the books is I've tried consistently through all my books to try and give the reader the feeling that he or she is actually there in part of the scene, and is really close, looking at what is going on, and can hear the characters, can see the characters, can kind of smell the background smells and see the colours of the trees and the sky, and things like that. So I try and put the reader as close into the picture so that they can also not only see these things, but they can feel the emotional context of what's actually happening in the book, and there are parts of the book that probably almost make you cry because in Return to Madrid, Francisca's actually kidnapped at one point by the people who have not been so kind, shall we say, to her son, and she's tied up in a basement of some building. She's no idea where she is, and you feel really desperate for her. But it's all part of this, the challenge that she faces. But I must admit that it was a big step to move from being a scientist to being an author. But one of the big advantages that I had over a lot of people who do this sort of thing is that, as I mentioned, I was part of my career was spent as an administrator in the Home Office, quite reasonably senior level, and part of the job of a senior administrator in any government department is to provide briefing for ministers and drafts of letters for ministers to send to people. I mean, I had to draft a letter for ministers to send to every chief constable in the United Kingdom, well, excluding Scotland, but even then we sent some to Scotland by, out of courtesy. So when you write a letter that a minister has to send to everybody in a certain group, in this case chief constables, it has to be exactly right, to the very last letter, the dot of the I and the crossing of the T. So I learned a lot from my time as an administrator in the Home Office about writing and how to, construct simple sentences, to write in good sentences, to write in a way that you actually really do communicate. So that was a big part of it. I also read a lot of books about writing novels, how to write a novel, how not to write a novel, and so on. And eventually I managed to learn a lot from these books, and off I went and started with The Harpist of Madrid.
Is that wow? Is that unbelievable? Because from a real
I just showed.
from
I may have,
okay, from a real um, connection in your life, it transforms into book. Is lovely. I want to show to our viewers the the other book.
yeah.
I'm going to check. Then I'm
While
so
you
curious.
while you're
After
doing that,
after
go on.
I want to show the artist. Yes. Okay. Et voila.
That picture, by the way, on the cover of The Harpist of Madrid is a very famous picture called The Death of Procris, by an Italian painter of the 16th
Ah.
century. And
Hmm.
it's an interesting painting. But somebody who first saw it said that's a very erotic painting, you know, the woman there showing her breast. But in fact, if you look at it closely, she is actually being stabbed by a spear.
Hmm.
And they, so it's not at all erotic. It's a point. It's at the point of a woman dying. But that's
Yeah, it's
just
true. Yeah, yes.
yeah, exactly.
Uh, I like your book cover because usually when we buy some book, especially book from novelists or book fiction book, we are involved, engaged to thinking. But you know, when you buy a book, just after few seconds, you lose your interest on the book cover, and then you go straight away to reading the book. But I suppose in your case different because from your book covers, the reader they can learn more about themselves. They can learn more about the author, and then they can see from different point of views a different story, and then they get more curious reading the book. Because I never read this book, The Harpist of Madrid, but I'm secure that the title and the book cover, the picture, is something that they can catch my attention. If you go to the bookstore, I can stop. I can see the book cover. I am catched because it's very catchier this cover, like
Yeah,
the others.
exactly. And the painting is actually by an artist called Veronese, an
Ah,
Italian,
wow.
very famous Italian painter called Veronese. And there are numbers of his works all over the world. In fact, in the National Gallery, there's a wonderful uh, sequence of four of his paintings about love. They are the most beautiful pictures. You know, I every time I go to the National Gallery, I go and see them because I'm so moved by them. And in fact, the um, the cover of Return to Madrid, if we can just dwell on that a moment, that's another famous painting by a character called Francisco Pradilla Ortiz, and it's called the Surrender of Granada.
Ah,
Surrender of Granada. It's right at the top of that. That's the one. Um, and it's actually he painted it in 1882, and the main character on the white horse there is the Queen, um, Queen Isabella, and her consort in the red who's Ferdinand. Isabella captured with her army captured Granada, and that was the last Muslim stronghold in Madrid at the time. So it's although it's not a tremendous relevance, not a tremendous relevance to the actual book, but it's about a woman again, a woman of amazing determination. And one of the reasons I put Isabella on the cover was I recognized that it was a woman who actually drove out the last of the Moors from Spain, capturing Madrid. And you can see the guy, the Moor there, who's cowering almost to Isabella, because he's more or less having to hand over the keys of Madrid, sorry, Granada, to Isabella the Queen. So it's quite a powerful picture in the sense of giving or recognizing the power of this queen in actually recapturing Granada, which had been held by the Muslims for something like 800 years. So
hmm,
it's a colossal achievement. I mean, obviously, it diminishes somewhat the achievement of Inés and Francisca in the book, but nevertheless, it's quite symbolic in the sense that it does recognize the achievements of a woman who really sets her mind to do something.
I am agree with you. In fact, I noticed this picture. You can see the black horse is nodding his head, um, looking at the floor or the ground. It's like to say, "I respect you. I respect."
Exactly.
Yes, the queen, and then the same times you can see the color, the red color is the most representative color in the picture. So we have two border, black and red, and then the queen is mostly with clear lights color.
Exactly.
So so is she. Anybody can recognize that she's the queen, she's the power.
And she
But
stands, and
yes,
the painter, the artist has got her standing. Her head is higher, you see, than any other of the heads in that picture. So the queen's head is higher in the picture, and in fact, there. I often think that, and I've seen this somewhere, that there are nearly always three focal points in a painting, and this is a really good example. There's the Moor on his black horse, giving up surrender in Granada. There's Ferdinand and the Queen. So there are three key people in this picture, and they each stand out of that amazing scene.
in fact, I like this picture. I suppose who decide to put this picture on your book cover, he or she made a great job.
Well, I made the decision, and funny
Oh
enough,
wow!
the guy who designed the cover, we both found his name is Rowan Renard, and he's the guy who designed my website. He's a terrific guy, actually, and I've really got a lot of time for him. He came across that picture quite independently of me. And in fact, it was him who suggested that it go on the book. And I immediately saw its symbolic significance in terms of the power of Isabella. Well, but and I found at first I found a bit difficult because this scene happens in 1492, and the book itself doesn't start until 1685. Kind of well over 100 years later. So there we are. But almost 200 years later. But there is a symbolic connection there with the content of the book. And in fact, Isabella, the Queen of Spain, is referred to once or twice by Francisca in the book, and
Wow!
so there is. But coincidentally, and I wrote that before the cover. We decided on cover, so that's quite an interesting little point. But
The,
there we go.
Sorry, I love it. You know why? Because it's like you have read my mind. In fact, I was ready to ask you who could be similar to your main character, Francisco. And then you revealed that the Queen Isabel, she is in effect your Francisca, because she's proud, is stands in his horse, is she represents the power, but not the masculine power, but the feminine power. In this case, it's very clear to me.
Yeah,
Is,
yeah. There is a
yes.
real solid connection there.
Uh, if you, because you know that sometimes I like to um, ask, because we have spoken about your book another way, because I told you, wow, your book could become very interesting thriller book, sorry, movie.
Yeah.
If you, for example, you want to make a movie about your story, in your opinion, nowadays, who could be your character? Do you know some actors that could be could represent your Francisca?
That's a very good question. Um, offhand, offhand, I don't really know many actresses.
Sorry, this one
But
is
you
the
slightly you slightly floored me there. Um, but I'm sure there are plenty of really good actresses around who could play the role of Francisca in any film, you know. And the same will go for Innes. Um,
yes,
there's some there's some good people around, um, and I'm certain that I mean, I think it would make a good film. Oddly enough, you mentioned films. I've been talking to a producer about one of my other books about expulsion, um,
ah, I
and that
should.
is that expulsion is about the uh, expulsion of the Muslims, or it ends up with the expulsion of the Muslims from Spain, which was a hideous set of circumstances. Um, about one of the cruelest thing that ever happened probably in Spain was the expulsion of the Muslims um, from Spain, which occurred between oh, the kind of the final expulsion, which occurred between 14, 1609 and 1614, and that I've used that picture on the cover, which is a portrait by Gabriel Puig and that's called The Expulsion of the Moriscos. And you can see that in that picture, the horror in that woman's face there. She's terrified. And the guy on the horse, you know, with the carrying his worldly possessions. These people are about to be thrown out of Spain. They've nowhere to go, and they end up. The ones who didn't drown on the way ended up in Morocco. Well, they'd been the Muslims had been in Spain, a part of Spain, for 800 years, so they didn't have anywhere to go. They didn't know anyone in Morocco. But the King of Spain, who was Philip III at the time, decided they must go. And this book is it exposes a spy thriller, in fact, about a character who was coincidentally Juan Hidalgo's father, who was a spy for the King of Spain. And he ends up on this mission to find out some information about whether the Moors are likely to attack Spain or not. Goes back to the king, and the king decides to expel the Muslim. And it is the most hideous thing. And he witnesses some awful events. And it just it's just it's a tale really of man's inhumanity to man. Um, it was about probably one of the first examples of a Holocaust. But anyway, that
Yeah,
I was really talking about. I've got somebody interested in, and whether anything will come of it, I don't know. But I've been talking to a film producer about making a film of this book, which is
I
interesting in itself.
I
Not many
hope
people have the opportunity to speak to film producers.
yes. Uh, I hope because reflecting deeper, your novel, your stories are set up within um, period that was in the past,
Correct.
but they are so um, so modern stories because nowadays we have refugees, immigration overwide in Europe, in America, in Asia, in Australia. And then we have nowadays problems with wars around the world and with women matters. In fact, in your books, you are able to um, speak about women's stories that, but they are always modern. Like in Return to Madrid, we can repeat the same story with different environments, different characters in modern days. Nowadays,
Exactly right.
your story
Precisely.
are, yeah, yes, your story are so modern.
People, you're right. I mean, the people are faced now with the same problems as people who lived in the 16th century, 17th century. These issues have been dealt with. I mean, the, the human beings have not changed so much over that time. Obviously, the environment's changed, the politics have changed, life in general has changed. But people in the 17th century had the same kind of emotional issues that we have today. Women had the same problems. In fact, women in those days were much less respected than ever they are now. Um, I mean, life in Madrid at the time was bad enough for men, but for women it was so much worse. They were treated like rubbish almost. Just childbearing
Mm.
machines, um, and nothing much else. But these two, Inés and Francisca, managed to get over all that. I mean, in fact, I think Francisca, both of them, Inés was never married, but Francisca obviously was to Juan Hidalgo, the composer, and he was a sensitive and intelligent man who treated his wife with amazing respect. And that also comes out of the story in Return to Madrid. They're obviously deeply in love with each other. And she missed. And the book starts off with showing that um, she really missed her husband, the composer Juan Hidalgo, and no doubt about it, as much as she missed her son.
Then another um, detail that I like in your book is that despite that you have a main character, you don't celebrate too much them. What I want to say, because when you read the book from other authors, we can see that they tend to celebrate their main characters because they are like avatar that they came from the idea about the world, about themselves. But in this case, your character is very dependent by the author. You are Gordon Thomas with your uniqueness, and Francisca is unique with her uniqueness. Why reading other books is easy to match the characteristic with character and author. In this book, your Francisca, your main character, is so independent. Is not part of you. Is is your character, is your idea, but it's not you.
No, no,
So yeah, it's
quite right,
beautiful.
quite right. No, she's not. She's totally independent, independent of me, and an independent person in her own right.
In
Yeah,
fact,
with her
as
ambitions,
you,
her thoughts.
in fact, I decided to interview you because any any woman they could read your book, learning a lot. Um, can I say they can read the book and then be inspired chapter by chapter to see how it was possible before for a single woman or a woman was married to be challenged in something that it was great than themselves, because
Yeah,
we know to understand that at time we will have the story. It was the Spain of the in ancient past. So it was very hard to the women to show the feeling, the angerness, the emotion, or just speaking about something, because the women before they were isolated from the
Yeah,
society.
yeah. There's a lot. That's very perceptive of you to come up with that analysis. But that's correct. Yeah, I think that's essentially right.
Then another point of view of my, of course, of my opinion, is beautiful reading your book. Do you know why, Gordon? Because when the reader starts read your book, we we won't fight together your main character with Francisca. Why she is writing her book, why she is escaping, why she's hiding, why she hug save her friends. We become a part of the book. We want to stay there with your character. We want to encourage them to win. So I suggest this book to my viewers because they can feel different. Reading your book, not just something that help us to relax, but is more than a novel book. Is more. In fact, as I've written on our live title, this thriller story can inspire our viewers, both men and women, of course. They can be inspired by the
Yeah, I
story.
think that's right. I mean, you've got the whole point of the book. The whole point of the book was to show how determination, um, utter determination in to achieve a goal, um, and persistence can actually yield results. Just keep going. I mean, the message is she gets very, very depressed in the book about the lack of progress she's making at various stages, and then just by actually, but some of it is about being patient, and being patient with other people, um, while they're
And
helping her to in this investigation, and not actually try and push them too hard. I mean, she eases off going to see one of the professors because she doesn't want to annoy him by pushing him too hard for information. So there's a lot in the book about how to treat other people, if you like, who are helping you to solve a problem. And you I guess the message there is you need to respect the people who are helping you, because if you don't, then it's not good. I mean, it's like if you got a problem where you're on a holiday or something like that with a holiday rep, you don't go up to the holiday rep and rip them apart because you want them to solve your problem. So you want to be decent to them and respectful, and then they'll help you. But if you go up to somebody and you've got a problem, you really lay into them about this problem and kind of almost blame them, well, or blame them, they're going to be less. They're going to be very defensive and not so keen to help you. And that's one of the things that comes out of this book about the way Francisca actually engages other people to help her. Because when you go into a place like Alcalá de Henares, she didn't know the place well. She didn't really know anyone there. She barely remembered the names of any of the professors at the university where her son was studying. So she had to rely enormously on people cooperating with her, and being sympathetic to what she wanted to achieve. Not everybody was. I mean, there were one of the professors, a lawyer, was actually completely unsympathetic and kind of delayed as dealing with the issue she raised as much as he could. And that's another thing that comes out of the book. There are people, you get help from various different degrees of assistance, and some people were really keen to help her, others were less keen to help her. And she handled the situation pretty well, I think. We're encouraged by Inés, who spent her friend who went with her. Of course, as a writer, let me just say that as a writer, you need to have a character who's kind of a sounding board, if you like, because um, part of the I'm a great believer in using dialogue in a novel, and if you don't have someone like if she didn't have someone like Innes, it would have been a much more difficult book to write, because she wouldn't be able to speak to anyone, tell her what her thoughts were about various situations she got herself into. So Innes is quite is a important character, and all my books that I've written so far, anyway, have got a main character and other characters who the book actually the main character relates to in some way or another. So that there's a lot of dialogue, and you can see how thoughts are exchanged between the characters. So there we are.
And then is a good way to learn somebody like Spain is a good way to learn some Spanish words.
Yeah,
Yes, because Gordon, uh, it's easy to match English word with your description. So who is passionate about Spain or Spanish language, they can have an complete overview about some words in Spanish, so they can refresh their mind. It's beautiful.
thank you.
And then the book it get more involving. It get more involving because people can say, "Oh wow, I study this period of the story when I was at the school," and then he is likely to have back travels uh, trip in the past because they can imagine themselves in Madrid in the past in Spain. It's beautiful trip.
Yeah,
Uh,
going back to the question that you asked me earlier that I was hesitant about answering. One of the women I think would make a very good character of Francisca is Angelina Jolie. I think she would do well as Francisca. You asked
who?
me earlier on the American actress Angelina Jolie. I mean, not only is
Ah,
she's a humanitarian as well. She's well known for various human rights things she's done. So I think she'd be good as a Francisca.
yes, yes,
I just
yes.
I
You.
just occurred to me as I was going
Oh my
through.
God. Again, you read my mind. But exactly. If it's a pity because they don't have enough money. Because if it was a producer, I want to so happy to produce your movie. You know why? Because how I told you before, your story could be recreated in different way nowadays,
Yeah,
and
correct.
then uh, by by common thinking patterns, or yes, we can have an actress like Angelina Jolie because it's easy for people to say, "Wow, I like her." And then I I am sure that she's the right actors for your main characters. I think yes. So if tomorrow in the future some producer want to make an astonishing story, a great thriller, I suggest to contact Gordon. Please, we need a movie. We need a movie.
Yes, good
Yes.
one.
Gordon, I have um, another couple of questions for you because I know you have already written another book, and then I want to vet you again next year because I am secure that this book will reveal more and more about the women universe. So, uh, sorry, because I feel so excited today. I have you here. And if you want, because I want to ask you an important question.
Go
Okay,
on.
yes. Sorry. Okay. Why, Gordon, you decide to have on your books mainly women characters?
Good.
Which is your
This is I've written now 5 books. The fifth book is yet to be published. And I'll tell you a little bit about it. But it is about a woman character. The first book was about a man, Juan Hidalgo. The second book was about a woman, Esmeralda, the Emerald of Burgos, a lady of pleasure who worked out of Madrid. Um, the third book was about a man, Antonio, the spy book, Expulsion. The fourth book was about two women, but mainly Francisca. And the fifth book is also about a woman. It's about a woman composer called Ethel Smythe, and it's not in the Madrid series of books. I've moved away from those books now, and it's about a British composer who was, in my opinion, one of the best composers that we've ever had in this country. And we've had some good ones, but she is up there with Benjamin Britten in terms of writing operas. You know, she's written some brilliant work, and she's a fascinating character. And in fact, it was someone else who suggested that I write this book. Someone who is quite a well-known authority on Ethel Smythe, who actually was gay. And so that's an interesting dimension. She fell in love with lots of different women. And I've had to bring that out in the novel in a sensitive way as best I can. I must submit the novel, it's been quite a difficult book to write. Because you're writing partly about someone who was very prominent in her day. She ended up being made a dame of the British Empire. She was very famous, but the problem is she's almost forgotten about now. Occasionally you get a snippet of one of her works performed on the radio, but extremely rarely. So part of the aim of that book is to bring her music more to the fore. And I'd like to think that if it does anything, that Ethel Smythe's music is going to be played more in the future. But it's been an interesting book to write. I'm still playing with the draft a bit, and I'm hoping to publish that just before Easter, all being well.
wow. So I need to enlarge my bookshelf. Yes. Wow. Um, if you tomorrow, when your book will be published with the characters, with the new characters, if the LGBT community decide that your book could become their manifesto, their manifesto, what do you think, Gordon?
I'd love that to happen, actually. I really love that to happen. I mean, I would have no problem with that. I'd more than welcome it. And I think, in fact, if Ethel Smythe was alive, she would welcome that too. Because the fact that she was gay was a big part of her life. She had numbers of relationships with different women. Some were more passionate than others. A number of women turned her down. You know, didn't want to be in love with her. So you know, didn't all go her way. And one of the women who she was in love with, it ended up rejecting her and freezing her out of her life, and it had a dreadful effect on poor Ethel. But there we go. But yeah, the answer to your question is yes. I'm sure I would have no problem at all in the book becoming recognised by the LGBT community. Because
Uh, yes,
Ethel was in a sense part of them.
yes. And I suppose if your community, your followers, my followers, they will read your book properly with the open mind, I suppose both feminist and both LGBT community members, they can have a great book in their hands
Yeah,
to show the world that we are unique souls, that we desire and we give love to everybody around us.
exactly, exactly. Um, and yeah, I mean, one of the things I would really like people to do who listen to this broadcast is to maybe follow my blog. I mean, if you
Yes,
at the bottom of the page on the thy homepage, there's an invitation to anybody who would like to follow my blog and kind of keep up with what I do in the way of publishing posts on Instagram and so on. The book about Ethel's going to be called "It All Began in Florence," and you soon see when you read the book why Florence in particular. I won't explain now, but when you start reading, it looks as if it all begins in Leipzig, but that's not quite that's not quite the point. But no, it. I love you, those listeners to this program, this broadcast, which I'm so grateful to Christian in putting together, to to follow me on my website. And there's an invitation right at the front of the homepage. And of course, if you wanted to buy the book, it is available on Amazon, as Christian has already noted. If anyone really wants it, what would like me to sign a copy for, then I'm sure we can arrange to do that. Especially, I'm more than willing to send a copy in the post that I've signed.
I want to show to our viewers the cover of your book, Return to Madrid, so if they can remind easily the book.
There we are. It's not a hardback, by the way. They look as if they're a hardback, but it is a paperback, and it's the cover price is 10.99, I think, or maybe
It's
it's
good
no,
price.
it's not. It's 9.99.
And then, in fact, I'm surprised because the price is cheaper despite the great story, the content, the details. Wow! So instead to go to do have a pizza tonight, order on Amazon this book because it's beautiful. I am sure that through Return to Madrid, you'll be inspired, and I am secure you can change your life as well. So don't waste time. Go to buy this book because it's amazing. You can refresh your mind about the Spanish wars. You can learn more about the women, about to become more determined. It's a it's a lovely story. It's a lovely story. Yeah, and then you can read more time and discover more deeply. So we are almost finished our lovely, amazing interview, Gordon.
That's very
I want
kind.
to I want to share with our viewers, your followers, your website. They can see more about you, more about your book. They can read your blog. They have your contacts. This one is your Instagram address. They can see more picture about you because when after the pandemic you start selling your book around London, so the people can see the picture where you are going to sell your book. And then I want to remind to our viewers that your Return to Madrid is available on Amazon.com. And then is it. So, Gordon, I really delighted this interview and see how the minutes are pass very quickly because people like speaking about themselves, about the story experience. So invite others, people, authors, coach to contact me because we can create more content to help women as much possible. So,
Ec-
Gordon, if you have your final greetings for our viewers, please.
Well, I'm really grateful to you for looking into this presentation that Christian has so kindly done for me. And all I can say really in conclusion is to wish you all the very best of luck and hope that you benefit from reading Return to Madrid in particular and any other of my series of books based in Madrid, as well as the new one I'll be bringing out on Ethel Smythe. So thank you very much indeed.
Welcome. And then I want to say thank you to my viewers, Gordon followers and friends. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you want to have more contents, please contact me because you can create a different topics for you, so we can be sure that I give you the right content at the right moment. So thank you so much. Stay with us. Continue watching my YouTube interviews and share love. Don't complain anybody. Take care and have a lovely weekend. Thank you.